Did you know there is a legend of a book that was not lost to time, but was deliberately and violently destroyed by the gods themselves? A sacred text, written by the great scribe Thoth, that contained a truth so powerful, so dangerous, and so destabilizing that the creator god, Ra, ordered it to be burned, its ashes scattered to the winds, and its memory erased from the mind of man. They told you the gods were the benevolent bestowers of wisdom, the generous patrons of humanity's evolution. But that is the lie. The comforting paternalistic lie they told you to hide a terrifying and inconvenient truth. The gods are not just your creators, they are your custodians. And in one fateful and secret moment, they made a decision to censor your evolution. A decision to place a divine speed limit on your soul. This is the story of the book Ra burned. It is not a myth about a lost text. It is the story of the day the gods became afraid of their own children and the forbidden knowledge they stole from you to keep you predictable, manageable, and forever in their shadow. They did not want you to know this story. They wanted you to believe that all knowledge is a gift from on high, to be received with gratitude and humility. They did not want you to suspect that the greatest knowledge of all was not a gift, but a birthright that was taken from you. The book contained the secret of accelerated apotheosis, the formula for a human soul to achieve the power of a god, not in 1,000 lifetimes of slow, painful evolution, but in a single, fiery, and conscious act of will. It was the key to unlocking your own divinity without their permission, without their guidance, and without their control. And that is why it had to burn. To understand the nature of the crime, you must first understand the nature of the book. This was not a book of paper and ink. It was a living document, a tablet of pure, solidified light, upon which Thoth, the divine architect of reality, had inscribed the final and most dangerous of all his equations. For eons, Thoth had been the loyal scribe of Ra. He had written the laws of the cosmos. He had mapped the pathways of the duat. He had recorded the sacred cycles of creation. But Thoth is not just a scribe. He is a scientist. And in his infinite wisdom, he was always exploring the possibilities, the potentials, the what-ifs of the universe. He had already written the books on how the universe works. This final book was different. It was the book on how to hack the universe. The book, which is referred to in the forbidden texts as the Tablet of the Unbecoming, did not contain spells or rituals. It contained the source code. It contained a precise, scientific, and repeatable formula for how a conscious being could directly manipulate the foundational laws of its own existence. It was a blueprint for a spiritual technology that would allow a soul to do 3 terrifying and godlike things. First, it contained the formula for the mastery of time. Not just to perceive the future, but to consciously select and collapse a desired timeline from the quantum field of all potentials. It was a technique for becoming the master of your own destiny, for stepping out of the river of predetermined fate and learning to navigate the ocean of infinite possibility. Second, it contained the formula for the mastery of form. It explained, in the precise language of vibration and geometry, how a soul could alter the very structure of its own physical and energetic body. It was the science of shape-shifting, not in a mythological sense, but in a real alchemical one. It was the secret of how to purify the physical vessel, how to activate the dormant junk DNA, how to build the luminous light body, the Merkaba, and to become a being who was no longer subject to sickness, to aging, or to the brute limitations of biology. And third, and most heretically of all, It contained the formula for the mastery of death. It did not just describe the afterlife. It described how to consciously and deliberately bypass the entire Osirian system of judgment. It was a technique for the soul to retain its full, unbroken consciousness through the process of death, to navigate the underworld not as a supplicant, but as a sovereign, and to choose its own next destination, or to choose not to be reborn at all, but to become a free and powerful agent in the unseen cosmos. This was not a book of philosophy. It was a book of engineering, the engineering of the soul. And Thoth, in his pure and scientific curiosity, saw this as the next logical step in the evolution of the divine experiment that is humanity. He saw his children, the human race, as being on the cusp of a great quantum leap, and he created the textbook that would guide them through it. He brought this tablet, this masterpiece of divine science, before the council of the gods, before Ra, expecting them to see it as his greatest gift to creation. But he was wrong. The gods, and Ra in particular, did not see a gift. They saw a threat. They looked at the formula for accelerated apotheosis, and they were terrified. Ra, the great creator, the king of the divine order, was a god of cycles, of gradual evolution, of predictable patterns. His entire creation was a slow, majestic, and controllable unfolding. The idea of millions of human souls suddenly seizing the power to bend time, to alter their own forms, and to bypass the very laws of life and death that he had put in place was anathema to him. It was not evolution. It was a revolution. It was anarchy. It was a child finding the master key to the entire cosmic temple. The debate that followed was the most contentious in the history of the gods. Thoth argued from a position of pure, dispassionate logic. He argued that consciousness is destined to evolve, that you cannot give a being the spark of divinity and then forbid them from fanning it into a flame. He argued that the book was not a weapon, but a tool, and that humanity had earned the right to the next stage of its own becoming. But Ra and the other gods who sided with him argued from a position of fear, a fear that was cloaked in the language of paternalistic concern. They argued that humanity was not ready, that they were too young, too emotional, too impulsive, that they would use this power to destroy themselves and the very fabric of the cosmos. They will become a race of reckless, warring gods, Ra declared. They will shatter the cycles. They will unravel the laws. The very order of Ma'at will be torn apart by the chaos of their unbridled wills. This was not a debate between good and evil. It was a debate between two opposing visions of fatherhood. Thoth was the father who believes that you must eventually give your child the keys to the kingdom and trust them. Ra was the father who believes that you must keep the keys hidden forever for the child's own good. And in the end, the argument of fear won. Ra, as the king of the gods, made his decree. The book was too dangerous. The knowledge was forbidden, and it had to be destroyed. Thoth, in his loyalty to the cosmic order, was forced to stand by and watch as his greatest and most beautiful creation, his gift of liberation to humanity, was taken to the great forge of the sun itself. And Ra, with his own fiery hand, cast the tablet of the unbecoming into the heart of the solar fire, burning the knowledge from the very fabric of existence. Or so he thought. The evidence for this cosmic censorship is not written in any official temple text. You will not find it in any museum. It exists only in the negative space, in the strange gaps and contradictions within the sacred law, and in the fragments of the most heretical and suppressed documents. Modern archaeology has found countless spells for healing, for protection, for a good afterlife. But they have never found a single, coherent text that describes the mechanics of a human soul achieving true, godlike power in a single lifetime. The very concept is absent. It is a hole in the center of the entire spiritual tradition. Why? Did they simply never think of it? Or was the thought so dangerous that it had to be utterly and completely erased? The censored documents, the Gnostic Gospels, which were branded as heresy and buried in the desert, are filled with the echoes of this stolen knowledge. They speak of a secret gnosis, a direct, inner knowledge that can liberate the soul from the cycles of fate and from the rule of the lesser gods, the archons. They speak of a path of awakening that is not gradual, but sudden, a flash of lightning. Where did they get these ideas? Were they remembering the lost doctrine of the burned book? And there is a strange and recurring image, a symbol that is found in the most secret of alchemical and hermetic texts, the ones that were passed down in whispers through the ages. The symbol of a book, a tablet that is on fire but is not being consumed. It is a book made of flame. This is not a symbol of destruction. It is a symbol of transformation. It is a clue, a hint that the book was not destroyed, but was merely translated into a different form, a form that could not be burned. And this leads us to the great and most empowering hypothesis. What if Thoth, in his infinite wisdom, anticipated Ra's fear? What if he knew that the gods would not be brave enough to allow humanity to evolve? And what if, before he brought the tablet to the divine council, he made a copy, not a physical copy, but an energetic one? What if he, the master of the mind and of language, took the entire, complex formula of the forbidden technique and he encoded it, he hid it in the one place that Ra could never think to burn? What if he hid it in you? What if the complete knowledge of the tablet of the unbecoming, the formula for accelerated apotheosis, is not in a lost book, but is dormant, encoded in the junk DNA, in the cellular memory, in the very structure of your own human consciousness? This would mean that you are the book. You are the living, breathing, and forbidden text. And your spiritual journey is not a journey of learning something new. It is a journey of remembering something that has been deliberately and divinely suppressed within you. It would mean that every flash of intuition, every moment of synchronicity, every sudden leap of consciousness is a single word from that forgotten book, momentarily glowing in the darkness of your own inner library. And it would mean that the great awakening we are now experiencing is not just a shift in belief. It is the beginning of the great remembering. It is the moment when humanity, as a whole, is finally beginning to reread the book that was burned. The decision of the gods to burn the book was not just an act of censorship. It was an act that fundamentally altered the course of human history and the nature of your own spiritual path. By destroying the path of accelerated apotheosis, they condemned humanity to the long, slow, and arduous path of cyclical reincarnation. The fast track to godhood was closed, and in its place was the slow, winding, and often painful road of karma. You would have to learn your lessons through trial and error, through suffering and repetition, over thousands and thousands of lifetimes, because they had taken away the textbook that would have allowed you to graduate in a single semester. This is the origin of the feeling of being trapped on a wheel, of living the same patterns over and over again. You are living in the world that was created by the fear of the gods. A world that is a spiritual classroom with no teacher and no books. And this act created a new and terrible dynamic. By positioning themselves as the sole keepers of a power that humanity was not ready for, The gods shifted from being guides to being guardians, from being partners to being wardens. A subtle but profound hierarchy was introduced into the cosmos. And this divine hierarchy became the blueprint for every single human system of control that has ever existed. The king who rules over his subjects because he has a divine right. The priest who stands between you and God because he holds the sacred keys. The expert who tells you what to think because you are not knowledgeable enough. All of these systems of control are a direct echo of the day Ra declared that humanity was not ready for its own power. The burning of the book was the birth of the lie of your own inadequacy. And what are the consequences of living in a world without this knowledge? You live in a world that is obsessed with a disembodied spirituality. You are taught to pray, to believe, to have faith. But you are never taught the practical, scientific, and repeatable techniques for the direct manipulation of your own energy and consciousness. They have left you with a religion of hope, and they have hidden the science of results. You live in a world that is terrified of human power. Any individual who displays a level of consciousness or ability that is too far beyond the norm is either deified into an untouchable savior, a Jesus, a Buddha, or they are demonized as a charlatan or a monster. The system can only tolerate power if it is safely contained in the past or if it is labeled as evil. The idea of a normal, living human being achieving the power of a god right here, right now, is the ultimate heresy. And you live in a world that has forgotten the art of the quantum leap. You have been taught to believe in gradual, linear progress. You are told to trust the process, to be patient, that it takes time. But this is the mantra of the prison they have built for you. The forbidden book contained the secret of the quantum leap, the possibility of a sudden, radical, and total transformation. It was the knowledge that you do not have to slowly climb the mountain of your own evolution. You can learn to fly. The suppression of this knowledge has condemned you to a path of spiritual gradualism, a slow and often frustrating journey when you were built for a journey of lightning. But the book was not destroyed. It was hidden, and the map to its location is your own intuition. The path to reopening its pages is the path of your own spiritual awakening. The gods, in their fear, underestimated one thing: the unquenchable, divine, and heretical curiosity of the human soul. They can burn all the books they want, but they cannot burn the part of you that knows it is a god in chains. And that part of you has been secretly and silently working for millennia to rediscover the lost science. The path to reclaiming the forbidden knowledge is the path of becoming your own Thoth. It is the journey of the divine scientist, the spiritual engineer, who is no longer content to simply believe in the mysteries, but is determined to understand their mechanics. It is the choice to turn your own life into a laboratory for the soul. It begins with the decision to stop being a passive recipient of reality and to start becoming a conscious and active creator of it. You must reclaim the three great arts that were detailed in the burned book. First, you must master time. This is not about predicting the future. It is about understanding that the future is not a single, predetermined road. It is an infinite garden of branching paths. And the path you walk is determined by the vibrational choices you make in the eternal, present moment. You master time by becoming the absolute master of your own now. By consciously choosing your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions in this moment, you are consciously choosing which future timeline you are collapsing into your reality. This is the art of the divine navigator. Second, you must master form. This is the great work of alchemy. You must begin to see your own body not as a fixed biological object, but as a fluid and dynamic field of energy that is constantly being shaped by your consciousness. You must become the conscious sculptor of your own vessel. You do this through the purification of your diet, through the mastery of your breath, through the conscious use of sound and sacred geometry. You learn to speak to your own cells, to reprogram your own DNA with the power of your focused intention. You are not just healing your body, you are rebuilding it, transforming it from a dense, carbon-based vehicle into a luminous, crystalline body of light. This is the art of the divine alchemist. And third, you must master death. This is the ultimate initiation. It is the process of consciously and deliberately confronting your own fear of annihilation and of seeing through the illusion of a final end. You do this through the practice of deep meditation, of shadow work, of the conscious exploration of the inner realms. You learn to die to your own ego, to your own limiting beliefs, to your old identities, again and again, in this lifetime, so that when the moment of physical death comes, it is not a terrifying leap into the unknown, but a familiar and welcome transition that you have already rehearsed 1,000 times. You become the master of your own inner underworld. This is the art of the divine psychopomp. This is the path that was stolen from you. It is not a path of faith. It is a path of science, a path of discipline, a path of courage. It is the path of the one who is no longer content to be a child of the gods, but is ready to take their rightful place as an equal among them. The burning of the book was not an end. It was a challenge, a divine test. The gods, in their fear, threw down a gauntlet. They said, "We will not give you the keys. Let us see if you are clever enough and brave enough to forge your own." And for thousands of years, we have been wandering in the wilderness. But now, the time of our exile is ending. The memory of the fire is fading, and the memory of what was written in the fire is returning. So is the story of the burned book, a forgotten piece of celestial history, a literal account of a divine censorship that has shaped our destiny. Or is it a powerful and profound metaphor for your own journey? A story of how you must overcome your own inner, fear-based gods and your own limiting beliefs to reclaim the forbidden, magical knowledge that is your own birthright? Or is the most powerful truth that it is both, and that the war in the heavens is a perfect reflection of the war that is being waged for the control of your own soul? Let us know what you believe in the comments below.